Right, good afternoon, everyone.
First of all, thank you very much for joining. I can see multiple people have already joined for the session. Thank you very much for joining. I can promise you, you will not be disappointed because I have two fantastic personalities when it comes to the topic. I have Dr. Shanta, who is a senior academic fellow of SIC Business School and engineer, and I also known for ex-banker. And I have Sam Thrimavithana, founder and CEO of Sponge Global. And obviously, for no further introduction needed, everyone knows when it comes to HR facilitation and the digital transformation, Sam is one of the leading experts in the country. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thanks very much for the session.
So let me start the session. As everyone knows, session's topic is adapting to a business needs with agile talent strategies. Right. So I'll let me start like this. I'm an investor and a business. So part of my work is I'm part of a setup of a venture capital firm where we go and invest on startups. Right. One of the biggest issues that I also need some advices on. One of the biggest issues we are having is we are not going to start IT firm, but the business is IT driven. It can be a ride sharing app, can be an e-commerce site. So when we try to invest on that startup, we don't want a whole set of people who build the product to continue. That's a corporate, right? We also trying to say, so we need the product build, maybe a fraction of a people to maintain it. We know the bottom line is the better. A fraction of the people to maintain it. Then the business to operate. We are not running IT company. This is a separate business, a consumer services thing. So we have few businesses like that. This is one of the challenges I personally had is, okay, how do you find the people, right? You might need people say, okay, you need a test automation. People say you need AI engineers. People say you need a separate software. So the conversation with the founders that I am having is, okay, I can't afford to have everyone full time or 12 months contract. No, it's the project MVP's timeline is 6 months. I invest on the 6 months, right? Then find a way to operate the product, right? Not to maintain stuff. I think this is a question when I'm in the circle of friends who are doing the same thing, business leaders in Sri Lanka. Most of the companies, even banks, DC companies, who having the same problem, right? I have two most industry experts on it. How does the business people solve this? What's your take? What is your advice for us?
Can I start?
Yes, let's start with Dr. Shan.
First, thank you, Tharinder and Sinkat for inviting myself and Sam. If I attempt to answer your question from the supply side, I do a lot of teaching, as you introduced me. Whenever I do a new subject, I used to ask this from the students, how many of you would like to become entrepreneurs? As you know, it would be a very less number, 1%, 2%. Maximum it would be 5%. Nowadays, we ask another question, how many of you would like to join the gig economy? Gig economy, the word can be the new word to the audience as well. It is where you see a lot of freelancers. Okay, anyone who has not seen freelancers.com, that's a massive site. They claim that they are catering to millions of users. So in a typical class, you get nowadays, you won't believe, about 20-30% freelancers. I love that. The reason, unless you become very competent, unless you are very confident about your capability of doing something, you will never try to become a freelancer. So from the university perspective, we love that. Okay, we know that students learn and they immediately come to a situation where they can discharge the responsibility and meet the needs of clients. So Agile comes there now when many people want to become freelancers, entrepreneurs. From where are you going to recruit people? The job market is shrinking when it comes to pure employees, and we both know very well how difficult it is to attract talent. More than that, to retain talent, and they can become.
The question is, we need to retain them.
Exactly, yeah. And because technologies are changing very fast, and in most sectors, it's changing very fast. So upskilling them and pushing them or motivating them to keep on learning is a daunting task. And when you reach a particular age, it's extremely difficult and it's very costly. And let me bring certain things from textbooks as well. There's something called Peter Principle. That means we tend to push somebody, elevate somebody, promote somebody to level of that person's incompetence. That means thereafter he cannot discharge the responsibility. Let's say a very good technician of a, let's say, automobile company may be promoted as an engineer who does not have the talent to run the show at that level. So that becomes a major problem. So coming back to the topic, Agile Talent Strategy, it's not something nice to have. It is going to be mandatory. It is going to be mandatory to ensure your survival and growth, because you cannot have talent that is going to be obsolete. You cannot keep on training them, upskilling them. So in that context, Agile Talent Strategy is something very mandatory. I guess that answers up.
Thank you, Doctor. Coming back to Sam, you are also the chairman for ITTK Council. Yeah. Right? So that's another fresh viewpoint that you might have. So let me echo the question. See, as a business, we are mainly focused on bottom line, right? So, but we want to get the things done, and that's a product for us, right? We are not a company of development IT. What is your take on? Is your advice for a business?
My take on it is, you have to be two things, right? One is business has different maturity levels. So I have worked in startups. I have worked at very high, sale organization with thousands of people, multiple thousands, as well as very different domains as well. So it depends on the type of work you do and which maturity level that you are in your organization as well. That's the first thing that you need to do. Second part, which I take is, okay, what's this, the agility mean for you, right? Very simply means, it's like you should be able to scale up and scale down.
Yeah.
Simple as that, right? So we had seen startups, we are starting with a smaller, as I said, with a founder and one person, but suddenly you will see that couple of product, going well, you need to quickly scale up. Now the problem is, should we invest that amount of money and should we kind of get the fixed costs kind of a thing, because you never know, in another round, another 2 quarters time or something, you like to say it up, right? Then you have the large company, you cannot run a situation where, to be that level, actually you need to have some level of like fixed resourcing that needs to be there, because they are already mature organizations and they are longer term projects and things like that. So number one, you need to look at your business and which stage you are, and then decide on the talent strategy. So for the agility, the analogy I always say is that's like there's AWS, right? So when I was doing the cloud certification, the great thing, that really struck my mind is like, you don't need to own any more software or servers and things like. Today you're a small organization, so you can just spare little amount, and then later if you want to sell, you can sell with the way that you sell always. Same applies to the current tester. So that's my take on that, right? That's one. Then how are you going to do that? Is the next question. So you have multiple models. For an example, you have this old school model of, yes, you need to do the traditional hiring and build your own team, the things like. But it's little out there, I'd say. But the problem is, some of the company, they still the people carry the same baggage of that, that rule where you need to kind of run the same talent strategy, right? So you need to change. Second model that I would see is, also you have to look at a global perspective as well. For an example, a country like Sri Lanka, especially working for large companies, I have seen some skill sets are not available in Sri Lanka. So obviously you need to basically hire them from anywhere in the world, right? And that's another one. Third, I would have said that, as you said, you don't need to you don't have a longer term requirement for a particular position, as you rightly pointed out. you need, in point in time, you need some requirements. So is there any possibility that quickly I can go access that talent and then release it? It's more than an acquisition, it's more like an access to resources, right? So that's one area which I think you need to be looking at. And also you need to understand, for an example, again, I'm picking on, Shanta's point of is upskilling, cross-skilling, reskilling kind of thing, right? So are you really into, do you really want to go through that whole acquisition to onboarding to reskilling, upskilling and future-proofing? That's not your core business. So then, of course, you can actually find talents very easily from places who are like specialized for that. I mean, that's where you can go into contracting, staff augmentation, and various other services. So all in all, in summary, what you need to do is, at the end of the day, you have a set of problems, you need to solve it. How quickly can I go and kind of access them? So there are multiple methods of doing so. So you can actually probably have a hybrid of these strategies as well. But it depends on where you are in your business journey. So that's my take on it, actually.
Point. Now, there are two aspects for this. Now, I represent the business, right? Same way that employee, right? Now, you being with the sick, right? What is the take on the young people who's coming out on this? Because this is a fairly new frontier, right? People need to understand that I might not work on a long term on a company. I find it like a service provider. Whoever wants the service, whoever demands my service at that point of time, I should be able to provide that service. What is, how is the younger students and maybe young engineers, what is the take on this? Are they have that realization? No, still it becomes something new.
Well, from an organizational perspective, we need to understand this ground reality. In time to come, the majority would prefer to provide their services on hourly basis or on assignment basis. Basically, it's going to be a fully operational gig economy, whether you like it or not. So the question is, from organization's viewpoint, are we ready to do that? Do we have the mindset? If you ask any HR manager who is listening to this conversation, are you ready to switch to this mode? The answer is no. Okay, they really want to go ahead with the traditional way of recruiting people, either on contract or long-term basis. We recruit people on long-term basis, whereas nobody wants to stay more than 1 year or 2 years. So it's a major problem. We keep on recruiting people, train them. Sometimes when we look back, we tend to think whether are we a training institution, because they have left. So I'm sure this is a common problem faced by any HR manager. They keep on training people, and the biggest problem is, no sooner you recruit somebody, that person is not in a position to discharge the responsibility. So you have to have some buffer time or rather provision to train that person, understand the business. His real productivity would come after a couple of months' time. So we are losing from that end as well. But if you go for resource augmentation, it's like plug and play. You recruit today and he will or she will be on the job from the next hour.
Yeah. Before coming into chat, let me have a follow-up question because that was very interested. Now, Dr. Shanta, now from the employee's point of view, right? I think most of the people now have that understanding. They might not be working for a certain company for a 10, 15 years. That era has changed. It's not like our fathers, mothers. My father, 40 years in police, 40 years, my mother as a nurse. So those times have changed, right? Now, do the next, the people who's coming out for this new industry, these are the people who are businesses need to get their service. Do they have the understanding that they might need to be work as a kind of their own CEO of their own company?
Right.
If it's a kind of a one person's company, how now?
Yeah.
Are they have that understanding now, and are they having that understanding that they would continuously need to improve and have the edge when compared to other people to provide that service? because people always would look for something special. If I have 10 people to get the same service, you would not get a better price from me. Someone offers me a same service, but for the faster and cheaper,
Yeah.
that's a different from it. What is the employees or the young ones understanding on this?
Well, this transition has been happening. And I'm not saying it's 100%. A sizable fraction of students in universities, higher educational institutions, they are getting ready to become entrepreneurs, in the sense service providers. They are willing to join this gig economy, and they know the importance of completing a job on time and the quality level expected. What would happen to them if they lag behind, and the necessity of having an edge over the other suppliers by acquiring the latest knowledge. So this mindset is there. Yeah. So we can be happy about that.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's very, very good to hear, Sam.
But I think what I want to add is, it's again that chicken and egg situation, right? If, for example, there is a demand and a supply. So the demand is driven by the companies now. So obviously, Shanta mentions that do the companies have that mindset? For example, as you said, this Agile Talent Strategies is the way forward. All the companies have that mindset, or the institutions that hire people have that mindset. If that mindset is there, you will see this is getting promoted. Then what happens? The supply will also get used to, right? So at the moment, there are two sides. That's why I said, when Shanta said I had a different view about this HR, so I have added, different companies, HR positions as well. So this is a continuous fight that most of the time, internal fights that I'd had. One thing is, sometimes you have very rigid strategies. Like you need to have degrees in order to get hired. These days, no. People are looking for skills, right? There are industry certifications, other things. So the traditional, educational, I'm not trying to restore it. It is one method of you become upskilled and, you getting competent. That will continue. But then from a company and the organization perspective, you are looking at a particular skill set and how quickly I can get my work there. That's what we're looking. The second one means, as I mentioned, so sometimes can we go for these, contract augmentation kind of model, because it is a problem. Talent retention is a problem. And also talent proofing, future proofing is also a problem. We are putting a lot of effort. That's not your core business anymore. Anyway, the third one is basically, you use kind of, you are using billing losses and all. The economic cost is high because you can't resource them on time, right? The right talent at the right time at the right cost, right? So obviously, some companies, they fight with it. Fight with its company in the sense, the stakeholder. They say, no, we need the permanent teams. Otherwise, they are not motivated, they are demotivated and all those stuff. And then sometimes the whole thinking is there, people who are working like this, like in this gig and all, they are not motivated or they are not loyal. And no, their thinking is different. They are thinking, okay, if I get you full time, I can get you work like a slave, right? And I'm not telling that the slavery mindset is there, but I think you have a control over you. That's the mindset they had. Second thing is, they said, of course, there is a genuine thing saying that, whether you guys are actually, aren't you distracted when you do multiple jobs? So I always used to say, hey, organizations are biggest distractors. When you're coming, your organizational stuff to sometimes talking about your promotions to this and that and all, you can see that can be a bigger distractor for you than working multiple 2 or 3 functions, right? But so if you come with that mindset of no, it's not going to work, it's not going to happen. So you, first of all, as an organization, needs to believe the talent asset is changing. So you need to kind of adapt to. Then what happens is you will see the demand side of it will be like that. Then what happens is the supply side will also get up. You into that. I'll tell you one example. I will not mention the company names, but I work for a company. So a particular company was very rigid on that. They don't want it actually. Another company that had consulted, of course, they had very progressive, talent strategies. For example, even they used to have like a company set up outside Sri Lanka, and their contracts are even outside outside Sri Lanka as well. So you are not coming into the jurisdiction of the Sri Lankan rigid labor laws and things like that, right? So it gives them flexibility to operate. Then there was another company which says, okay, at a particular level below, you hire only either contractors or you go for the augmentation model, except for some skills that they wanted, like the longer term, requirements are there. Because obviously there is a cost factor also. I mean, for you have a longer requirement, you can probably hire them at a lesser cost rather than, getting it with a short term or from an augmented model, right? But then if it is like a changing, then the other model is that you need to do. And even at a particular level above, is also sometimes you don't need full changeable. For an example, just imagine a very strategic role with that. You don't have a day-to-day job, right? It's a very high-end strategic job that you do. So you probably need to look at that big picture, look at the context, and have certain strategic choices coming up. That's kind of, you can do it for multiple companies. Plus, there are benefits for the company as for the individual, because that type of resources are there's a shortage, high-end shortage. Right? So obviously finding them is also difficult. Number one. Number two, we'll say the company, if you want to retain such talent, you have to pay a lot, but you don't really need to pay that amount as well. Right? Then and you don't take the risk of carrying that burden. No matter the person can be brilliant, but you really don't need that person's 45 hours, so 160 hours for you. You need only a fraction of great talents, right? So that's the company is going to get paid. And look at the individual. Individual also say, hey, look, I'm like great in this area. I have exposure. I have all the requirements for it. Now I don't have to work for one company. I work for multiple companies. So my earning capacity also within 2x, 3x. The other thing is I don't have to stuck with one company. Right? It's pretty boring. Now I work with multiple companies, which gives me different problems, different cultures, different situations. Obviously, it will be much more exposure. Yeah. So it's beneficial for both parties. It's just a matter of somewhere it has to start, or else the environment will have to start changing. So you don't have any other option but to change. And I'm actually thinking that it will happen coming, but as you rightly said, slowly, I think that is where it is going. You may need to anyway drop the old talent strategies and moving to more agile, the modern way of working. That's my take on.
That's some solid points. I think that's very correct. Now as an investor for me, as you correctly said, the labor laws, right? If you hire a person for a certain period times, there are some sort of very strict commitments, right? Which you don't want to take, because from the business point of view, you are investing or cash flow for you are extremely hard-earned money, right? So you want to make sure you develop the product, get the MVP out where revenue generation happens, but whatever the burden, you want to minimize as much as possible. So I see this is a lot of investors on tech startups are happening, right? How do you see this coming into a corporates, the banks, financial institute? A lot of banks have their own IT department. So
for example, you go and ask on any bank. I am working with many banks. So with regard to consultation, training and things like that. You ask them, the recruitment is a big problem for them. Because a lot of people are migrating, and some of the new generations, as you said, do not want to come and stay behind the teller, become a teller and being a counter kind of thing. So obviously there are certain technologies that is going to help that as well. For example, we get to see very soon a lot of automation work and kind of AI and agents and all these things are going to take over some of the lower end jobs, right? It will be a solution for the company. So if you look at apparel companies, I know some of the CEOs of these apparel companies, their number one priority is what? Automation, right? So they're trying to automate. There are many benefits to it. One is because at the lower end of the pyramid, it's difficult for you to kind of resource, right? And it doesn't really give that cost benefit for you as well anymore. The second thing I would say, from the corporate point of view, as I mentioned you earlier, you need to sometimes have that proper, which we call the strategic talent, the resource management model being sorted, right? For example, there are essential skills, as I said, there are niche skills, and so you need to do that particular strategy properly. And then based on that only, as you rightly pointed out, that you need to kind of take an action, right? So, but it is not only for IT. I said, this is
It's applicable to all the industries.
apparel and services industries, everything, right? And as I mentioned, some of these industries get, the traditional job get they disrupted as well, because we're talking about AI augmentation. For example, we'll say those days you need to have a knowledgeable agent answering you. And when you say knowledgeable agent, that guy needs to go read all your products, your brochures and everything, and have a good understanding. So ideally speaking, a person who has been working for 5 years must be knowing in and out about your products and handles many customers and all. But now what is the AI is going to do with this RAD, RAD technologies and all, what do you call it, within a retrieval augmented system, which we call so you just can dump your PDFs and all the other manuals, everything like that, and you have your large language models and all those stuff, right? It's a matter of you can get an employee, quickly train them, and it's a matter of that, you can ask these questions and you can put out the right answers and things like that. Later on, it will even, these people will also get replaced by the AI agents and things like that. So that transformation is separately going. That's how corporates are trying to solve this problem, right? And but then from a talent side also, I think the employees or the people who are looking for jobs will also have to start taking into consideration this is what is happening in the industry as well. Because the thing is, otherwise they will be, that is what you mentioned about the skill count and all. I mean, all what you need to understand is what type of skills that will be required for future. And even getting hired for an organization, Tarun, you must be right, it's changed. Now see, Shanta, you might got previous, you have a lot of students.
That's my follow-up question for both of you. The traditional hiring process versus what's coming.
Yeah, so see, traditionally, I mean, we are seeing the transformations. For example, you and I, this will tell my age, by the way, is like we were looking at observance and the time when all been advertising and sending the normal one. It has gone out. Now you get the email. Now then it went into like this Slack box. Now you have all something called application tracking system, right? You have something and then some platforms and the people start kind of applying this application tracking system. So the next level is what? Next level is application tracking systems also have thousands and thousands of applications. But they are going to get shortlisted by the AI. At least the low end. I'm telling you, still the middle and the higher, you may have some level of like, head hunting and those type of things still continue. But eventually, what we say, the majority of these jobs, the first couple, will be most like AI filtering that is going to take place. Now, I've been telling this again on the follow-up point on what I was mentioning. Most of the students still knows about what? Either go to a job platform and apply. Or otherwise, you send it to a lecturer or someone, hey, do you have a opportunity? This is my CE, and through LinkedIn and all, you will see about at least 10, 15 people requesting. So I used to say, look here, that's not how the companies are hiring. You need to go and basically start entering this into the application tracking system or something. Second, your CV or something will have to be properly, the keywords and all those things are being in a proper way. So at least the algorithm will be able to pick those. So I'm not going to say algorithm is picking the best CV. It is not happening. You already know that, but there is no other option. I'll tell you one example. 5 interns we were looking for, 4 interns we wanted to get in for a particular company. The moment you open the job post, there are 800 applications on the system, right? And how are you going to open 1,500 applications and select the 5 or interface? You need to have another team to do that. So obviously,
That's another cost.
yeah, the AI and the other stuff, I mean, there are other methods, right? We'll give you the first 100. That 100, of course, we will call them for some sort of a hackathon or something like that. But still, sometimes people don't go up to that extent because it's all drive cost for us. Might as well get 5 people from maybe Cat or some other company, right? Yeah. Right? I would say I need only 5 guys. Why not? Or otherwise, you will have an ecosystem. That's why I said talent access. So in one company, large company that we work, we were having something called a campus reach program. There we exactly identify what are the requirements we want. Even we go and plant a module there, right? The universities are okay. So then we don't have to like go through all these selection processes and all this stuff. We have one particular place where we can go and hunt. And then it's easy for us to go there and then pick 5 guys from that batch or something like that. So that's how the corporates are basically tackling this. I don't know that.
Harinder, yeah.
Fantastic.
If I add a point, now why an agile talent strategy is going to be mandatory for business organizations we all are keen in promoting innovations in an organization. Okay.
You have that experience there.
Of course. But how many of us see the necessity of pushing people to come up with new ideas? It's not happening as we expect. The reason, when you recruit somebody as an employee, he has this reporting mindset. Something goes wrong, I am answerable. So my decisions have to be made very rationally or logically. So I use a lot of data. I need to do calculations. I need to do extrapolation. I need to do forecasting, scenario analysis, simulations, everything. The reason, I'm answerable. But I'm sure we all have seen entrepreneurs or top business leaders claiming that it's me who is bringing all these ideas. Why is that? He has the liberty, freedom to suggest anything. As long as it works, he would implement. But this mindset is not available with contracted or recruited employees. Now we have to break it. If we hire someone as a consultant or as a freelancer,
You also wrote a book on this, right?
yeah, and he has the mindset to suggest something he is willing to try out. So to promote innovations, we must necessarily go for this agile strategy. If not, when you put new people into the same bunch of old people, after 1 year, after 6 months down the line, they all will tend to think in the same way. So even if we come across innovations, they would be very minute, incremental innovations. But the guys who have no responsibility of reporting to someone, there's a possibility that they may come up with radical innovations, disruptive innovations, and so on. Another thing, if you are into service-oriented business, is this very crucial. The reason, service sectors innovations are happening very fast. It's very easy to imitate. So you don't have time to train your people to combat. And another point I would like to highlight here is why you should have a agile talent strategy. Those days we were comparing our employee performance with competitors who were the number one in the industry or number one globally. But that era is gone because we are responsible, because we are a member of a large, long value chain. So when our suppliers, buyers enhance their standards, we also need to run according to their needs, because you need to run fast to stay in your business. To do that, you need to have an agile talent strategy, I guess, something like resource augmentation.
Well, the one point I just tap into mind, it's you have to think like this Uber pick me model also. For example, now see one of the because I was an insider, I know, there's a truth in that as well, Tarik. The reason is our people are not very credible also. Sometimes, obviously, they don't show up, not commitment, and so the employers are thinking, of course, if you have a person, you have their background verification done, you have a personal file running, and this guy is basically only working for you and you're monitoring, this person would be kind of, so, but the truth is that if the people are not credible and if they are reliable, of course, the businesses are going to have a problem. That's a big question mark in this whole thing. But I was just thinking, now look at this Uber, this model. Whereas, there is a particular method that, the best drivers come on top or something like that. The unreliable drivers, if they keep on, cancelling or whatever like that, after some time, those guys, go out of the business. So that model is working, whatever said and done. So similarly, if we have a model where, for an example, tomorrow, I'm an employee, prospective employee, and I want to get hired somewhere for some work, right? And just like, I'm sure it is there in this platform, right? Where people go and give you 5 stars or 2 stars. Have you seen this taxi drivers give you a great service and they say, sir, can you please rate me by? Because the reason is, people look, I'll get something. So the platform and this whole thing will have to start driving this. Then people will become more credible, people will become more reliable, people start upskilling themselves, they were looking for recommendations because they want to go up in that particular leaderboard or whatever, so they get hired and get more work.
Then when we stars, number of stars they are going to get.
Yeah, Taring.
Yes, this is exactly correct. Now, one of the biggest challenges we face in Sri Lanka is the mindset to have or rather earn a monthly salary.
Yeah.
Unless we break this mindset, organizations are going to struggle forever. Because in most of the other countries, you are paid by on an hourly rate or hourly basis. So to meet this hourly rate requirement, you have to upskill yourself. Okay. Now, if you have this mindset to change these basic things or traditional things as HR people who are listening, then of course we can see better results.
But it will come with, as I mentioned, pressure. Because,
Pressure, yeah.
you see the middle, some of this, I told you, so at a particular company, we were not hiring below and on top, but the middle had a, middle management has to have like a fixed consistency, sustainable kind of a model where they are the ones who are on a daily basis getting to the calls, build relationship with the clients and all those stuff, right? But the issue is now for them, it's a problem, right? This agile strategy itself is a problem. For an example, the things that you said, now your mindset is what? You don't need to keep people for a long term. They can have a quick, kind of, they come, they do their work and move on. So they also don't like to be that type dynamic. They are also looking for some sort of a, what we call fixed thing to work, right? So the organization stakeholders will also give you a lot of pressure not to change, right? But then you need to say, hey, look here, one of your job is to basically do this, right? Run these type of hybrid models, and it comes with its own problems. You need to make sure that your the high turnaround is there. So you say one of your, why you are being hired and given a permanent job is because you are supposed to run these type of challenges. Right? You can't be looking for safety.
By the way, Thavinder, are we trying to do something brand new with resource augmentation or agile strategies? That's not true. Okay. If I add the point, you think this is not brand new. This is not brand new. Okay. Time to time we come up with interesting new words and we try to wrap it and present it or represent it. But I'm not saying agile resource strategies are practiced by most of the organizations. The answer is most of them do not. Okay. But if you look at how management scientists have been talking about this particular aspect in 50s, in 1970s, okay. Audience, if you are interested, you might research on these topics. Transaction cost economics. That was a very old theory, still in use. Okay, where we argue, how do we decide the size of an organization? By looking at the resources we do have and the number of employees. Whether it is worth getting something done by an outsider. If it is not the case, then you will invite that person to your organization and continue to grow your organization. So that debate, whether to use somebody outside, whether to use your own employee, that argument was there and it is a theory. Just search in internet under transaction cost economic theory, you will see millions of entries. Another one, resource-based view theory. Search in Google, you would see millions of entries, resource-based view, where they argue to use the resource, you don't need to own it. Same is applicable to employees. And there's another interesting theory that the term dynamic capability theory, or let's say dynamic capabilities. We need capabilities in organizations. No point in having resources. You might boast that I have the latest machines. You might say I have a world-class ERP. But what if we don't have the required resources to use it? So we need to have capabilities to optimize the resource utilization, right? Now, you cannot have static capabilities. You have to have dynamic capabilities. What does it mean? You have to upgrade and align your capabilities with the changes in the environment. If not, it is of no use. Now, how can you do with a static group of employees who tend to think that whatever happens, we can continue our jobs and we'll be paid at the end of the month? No, that mentality will not work, and that strategy will not work. So we have to look for better strategies to survive and grow. And this is not something nice to have. I'm repeating, Agile Talent Strategy, although we come up with new terms showing that this has something new, it has been there in the world. Okay, look at any large organization, they prefer to focus on their core business and they try to outsource all the other things. Even Sri Lankan banks, I'm sure you would have come across, their salaries are prepared by other companies. And large telco companies, the entire billing work is done by others,
And call center.
and leasing companies from donkey's ages. The let's say seizing operation was outsourced. Why is that? So getting all the employees on full-time basis, I guess it will not work.
I'll tell you. So,
Unless it's a very, the only question comes, if it's like, for an example, it's like a conflict of interest. For an example, you say you are a key decision maker, your strategy, we'll say there are two insurance companies and two CEOs. Obviously, no, we'll say, then you can't share the same CEO among these two because the reason is there's a conflict of interest and obviously there's a competition. Certain roles you can't, but certain strategic roles you still can go into that model. As I said, most of the other, the jobs that you have in a company, you can. That's why I say that strategic, that plan, resource plan.
Probably in IT industry, in which we have been working for almost 20, 30 years now, we'd have taken it wrong. Look at a hospital, how do they operate, all the specialists, how they recruited all these leading doctors, they go everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. So this has been in airline industry for generations. Okay. This agility was there in industries, but in IT industry, probably due to the lack of competent talent at that time. I remember when I was a banker, we had consultants for IT. The bank was in the process of transforming their systems. They were in the early stages of computerization. Then came the problem: what if they leave, the consultants? So they immediately negotiated them, took them on board as permanent employees. Okay, so that mindset was there in IT industry at the beginning. These talented employee, I hate to own that person. Yeah, of course. That era is gone.
But on the ecosystem, you need to have very reliable partners also. That's the other thing, right?
I'll tell you one experience that I had. This is a continuous conversation. In go and invest on a company, you have a conversation with CEO or the founder. He says he needs 6 months, this much of resources we need to fund. Right? He says he need a project manager, 2 BAs, 4 developers, 2 QAs, then the trainer, something there is. So the first conversation that I'm going to have, who are the people we can remove out of that? So I gave them normally, when this conversation going through, I'm giving them 2 options. Either you can keep the project manager, rest of the staff team outsource, or you keep the project manager, entire development you need to do on a no-code solution. That is much safer for me, right? If I spend 20 million for 6 months, why do I have to make a baggage for keeping these people for 1 year, right? And from them, their point of view, I also told them this: you are getting a person with you for a 6 months, 1 year, versus getting a person from somewhere else. You might have a different set of exposures. He have done these systems before. He have a multiple exposures. So get the specialist to do rather than getting a senior software engineer with 3 years experience. They have not done the system. It makes sense, right? It makes sense. You don't need all these roles within you.
Yeah. And it is also shifting from now to more role, which is I have seen again, Shanta and inside we see it from a role base to it is now moving to more skill base. Those days you have very strict roles, right? For example, the cloud engineer, the AI engineer, whatever, right? Supply chain guy or that guy. But if you really look at it at a fundamental level, maybe you are now looking, your categorization comes most of a skill, right? And your job, whoever who's doing this, in order to make sure that these endings here, so that is also your use analytics and you have to look at the demand side of it and to find out what are the trending skills, what are the trending technologies, tools and all the stuff. And quickly the resource pool will have to get updated on this. And then what you do is we start continuously, it's not based on a role. You don't have a fixed role. Based on the skill, you get deployed, right? And large companies, of course, they have large, and you work for some large companies where you have many centers and global talent pools and global delivery model kind of thing. They are operating that talent mobility that, I'm not telling it's a perfect model, but they are, in that process of, doing that, right? But then, of course, as you said, for certain other companies and organizations, it's a different maturity level. might not have the luxury of doing that. So then the other option would be for you to kind of go into a model like augmented model kind of thing, who are at specialized race who will be doing it. And then you just need to say, like, these are the 3 or 4 skills that I require. Give me the best match and run. And then they will just, deliver something, remember that you earn the margin or whatever, and then you deploy. Then whole this thing about maintaining a big bench, and, even the bench is a big, yes, for number, right? But 20 to 30% of the basic. Yes.
To stop you there, friend of mine, CEO of the large software development company, have sent me a WhatsApp message, asked from 2 of you, what would happen to a bench?
Yeah, so while for the first tutorial, this is like the first thing, they call it the first thinking principle or whatever, right? You need to ask the question about why do you need to have a bench?
Yeah.
What is the reason you need to have a bench? There are 2 things. One thing is basically, you did business, and if you can't resource it, yeah. So because of that, you need to make sure that you have a bench. And most of the companies that I had seen, they have a bench, but they don't have something called selfie bench. That means that doesn't mean from that bench you can actually run some of the engagement, because you don't have the right skill set, right? Second problem is, of course, you are basically finishing your project and things like that. Or your talent is very obsolete. What you do is you deallocate and put them into a bench now. Now this is just, and the people, and some people just make sure the bench is basically a way that you can quickly reallocate and put people. But ideally, bench is your growth engine, right? Yes. But most of the time it doesn't happen that way. And the other thing is, most of the time, some companies, what happens is they don't even though they have a bench, they cannot identify that they what do you mean by bench? Excess resources, right? Sometimes your productivity and all those things are hidden, right? Your time entries and all those things doesn't happen. There are no proper systems and things. There are a lot of inefficiencies. Ideally speaking, the organization runs at a 30% bench, that it doesn't show on listing. But an organization which really has that proper deallocations and maintaining bench, of course you will fund that. So then that is a bigger cost. So then one of the in these sessions you need to ask is, what does the purpose of maintaining a bench? And is there a way that I can reduce it or not?
That's the million-dollar question.
One of the things that we used to do it, and don't misunderstand, that sometimes we were thinking, can't we move the bench to the campuses? Right? For example, for us, you have the lower end. If you take the bench also, you have the same pyramid. You have higher end and the lower end. So usually the higher end one, sleeping in the bench is very expensive. So obviously you will find most of the time the middle and the lower. Okay. So we were thinking, why can't we have like a dedicated bunch of people who are now giving dating or in campuses, like through, I don't know, incubators or whatever, you can set it up. So ideally speaking, your bench is sitting outside the outside. So it doesn't come as a cost for your organization.
Another point is, Karin, that now business organizations, they have a social responsibility as well. Now, if I recruit my employees and if I continue to keep them, basically they are trained and they are asked to think along our own thinking. Okay, according to our vision, they are going to master our technologies. In a way, not allowing them to look around, acquire other skills is very unfair by them. Okay, so in that context, I prefer this agile talent strategy. Now, many of you listening to this conversation might tend to think how to become, from an employee perspective, how to become agile. Now, I'm hired by organization X. I'm identified as an expert in their technologies. Now, can I become agile? Can I become a multi-skilled person? Well, my advice is we need to start from the basics, Sam.
Yeah.
If I take software industry as an example, the guys who have learned things like design patterns, that feel like your Bible.
Right.
And there are some people who have started the story, even coding from the middle. They don't know the fundamentals. I'm sure they will be in trouble. But if you know the basics, it's very easy for you to switch to multiple technology. Okay. This is not something new. This is not something happening only in IT industry. This has been there in automobile industry, airline industry, many different industry sectors.
I love that hospital example.
Yeah, and coming to how to become agile, how to become, let's say, a person valued by multiple companies. as Sam suggested, there are ways like micro credentials. Okay, almost all the leading universities in the world, they offer short courses, 10 hours, 12 hours, 30 hours, and so on. And very interestingly, free of charge as well. And we have all these branded ones as well. So we cannot expect a business organization to keep on upskilling people by sending them for training. It is the responsibility of a particular employee to improve their skills. Pay attention to the dynamic capabilities we just mentioned. An organization will not require a person whose skill set is static.
Yeah.
You have to be dynamic. You have to consider the fast changing nature of the business environment. Think of a good example. A few weeks back, I wrote an article to a local newspaper. It was about deep sea disruption.
Yeah.
Sam, this sends us a very, very important signal. Those days, we had some time. Let's say your company has just introduced a brand new product. It will take some time for you to go to the maturity or growth stage,
advantage.
maturity stage, and then decline stage. Those days it was 10 years, 20 years. Nowadays it can be a couple of years or months. But what did we learn from DeepSeek? Now, all the other large language companies, like let's say generative AI companies, they were distracted because of the massive demand for their solution. They never wanted to improve. They never wanted to rather bridge the gaps in the solution. Let's say it's resource hungry. You have to have the systems to run, and there were a lot of deficits in the product. But they
Investment estimation was starting
Yeah, of
from
course.
billion.
You need billions.
Yeah.
Then came DeepSeek, and they saw the opportunity. Now the message I want to convey is there are disruptions happening. You cannot rest. Even during your product in its infancy stage, initial stage, there can be a disruptor who can come up with a totally different product.
Can become
Those days, we use something called technology S-curve. Okay, by looking at technology S-curve, you can decide how long your technology will survive in the market. When the technology does not give a boost in productivity, we know that there will be a competitor who will come up with a complementary technology. So ultimately, we have a long technology S-curve. All these things have gone for 6 with this kind of things. The summary, your product, irrespective of its stage in the life cycle, can be challenged by a disruptive technology. So who can think in this way? Outsiders, not your own guys, because your mind is programmed based on your silos. Technology.
To give an example, I think before when starting, somebody was asking. So there was a particular client that I was working with. They had close to about, I think, 150 or 200, automation testers. Nothing. They were using all, I don't know, they need to have a particular skill set, then it was in high demand, right? Because you have to have this technologies like Selenium and, Java and some programming knowledge and things like that. So it is in, what they call was difficult for them to hire also, and there was a high demand, and about 1/3 of the company was running on that. Immediately, as you said, this generative AI model came, and they came up with some sort of a UI based thing. Now you can take a normal person to kind of, fill that whole thing and press the button search, and you will see the code is getting, written into this. And when you look overnight, the client, and actually that is the other problem, right? I mean, that is something to do with the business, because they were not, there was no client diversification. They were basically dependent on one main client. Overnight, 50% of them were on the bench. The contract came into an end. I think I don't know, they did a premature ending or something like that. So they said, look here, we don't need this many people. And 50% of that particular team was deallocated and put it into the bench. And what are you going to do after that? Of course, the HR person went through a lot of, trouble of, how am I going to now do ERSS and this and that, and, how can I redeploy and things like that. That's even difficult in our context. We spoke about it, that just limiting the damage. That is just...
Another question that would come to the minds of HR managers would be, everybody is talking about Agile Talent Strategies. Where should we start? My suggestion is start with your next project.
Yeah.
Okay. rather than waiting until the board of directors would approve a new policy document. You don't need to wait. You can start with your new project. Try this out. I guess it will work. So having resources from outside organization is always advantageous. I'm sure you will have come across this term open innovation, which is becoming very popular across the world. Open innovation is nothing but organizations have realized that they cannot have all the best brains on board. That is not doable. I'm not telling you something brand new. Some 20 plus years ago, one of the leading FMCG companies in the world is Procter & Gamble, B&G. They came across a very, very challenging situation. They had 1,000 odd top scientists on board, but they realized the fact that there are better brains outside the organization, how to harness their knowledge. Then they, instead R&D, this their R&D team, okay? Instead research and development, they came up with a very interesting proposition. It goes as connect and develop, C&D. If you go to P&G, Procter & Gamble website, it's still there. And what they did was, it's like you invite outsiders to come and help. Okay, it's crowdsourcing, nothing but crowdsourcing.
But the fintech,
those days the word crowdsourcing was not there. So they created the portal, invited all top scientists. Are you interested in working with us on assignment basis? And they are still practicing it.
no, and when I can remember, I think some part of the world, you have these fintech sandboxes.
Yeah, even in Sri Lanka we have.
You're right. You have the fintech
Fintech sandbox is there.
sandbox is there. So, I mean, you get a lot of innovations happening, and you can see these ecosystem partners and just expand the innovations from there.
And one of the biggest challenges we do face I worked in many different industry sectors. People are afraid of coming up with new ideas. Although the top people, they kept on demanding that you need to come up with brand new ideas, new innovations and so on. Why does it happen in that way? Here's an example. If you are trained as, let's say, your background is automobile engineering, let's assume, in the university they have taught you how does it work, an internal combustion engine is working. So you have to have petrol or diesel to show your professionalism in your career, in your organization, in your industry. You will never challenge those principles you learn. So how do I show my professionalism? Now, even in my MBA classes, I keep on saying this. If I'm a banker or an accountant, I'll continue to worship debit credit principle. I will never challenge that. The moment I challenge that, people would see myself as unprofessional, or my chartered membership would be remote. But somebody who does not have these qualifications or this kind of, let's say, baggage thinking, they come up with a brilliant idea to change. So somebody who has never studied automobile engineering may extract hydrogen from water and power the engine, which is happening now. Okay, so in organizations, we tend to hire people who are experts in particular domains, but their thinking can be very tunnel kind of thinking, no lateral thinking.
So a lot of people are talking this about Elon Musk, SpaceX and reusability of visit. I mean, this is like the buzz thing, right? Now here you have an opportunity to do it with your own talent.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a fundamental thing, What was he thinking? He was thinking about, hey, rocket travel or whatever, traveling is expensive. You ask a simple question about why it is expensive. It's not reusable, right? I mean, I was listening to somebody, I think it was Sanjeev or someone who did a podcast. He was telling, he nicely put it out. He said, it's like, a car. You use one time and throw the car. You use your mobile phone, one call and you throw. Same analogy, right? Now he's thinking, why can't just like the mobile phone being used for multiple calls, just like this thing, why can't I use a rocket? Here comes SpaceX. Here comes, Elon Musk and all the rest of it, right? Now you can do a similar thing in your own organization. But you are not willing to take that risk. You are just glorifying Elon Musk and not doing whatever you have to do it in your organization, right? So it's all about taking the risk, and because people don't like to fail. I mean, you heard about these mental biases, right? When they call the, intuition, mental biases and heuristics and all the stuff, right? We learn. One other thing is people are loss averse. More than the gain, you have a similar gain and the loss. Your tendency is that the loss aversion, you put more weight. because of that, you always say, hey, I'm going to do this thing and get screw up. I'm going to be kicked out from the company and, I'll lose my branding and my reputation and all. Might as well run with the same thing, right? But nobody wants to like really do a new thing and then make sure that it works. And if it is a success story, here we go, right? It's a success story. Now we can replicate and you can always say it as a, and wear as a badge of honor also. Even if it is fails, it can be a badge of honor. I'm trying to do this one, it didn't work. That's how happened in the, what do you call this, the ecosystems like what they call Silicon Valley and all. You do a startup and you fail, still it's a crown and a badge, right? Saying that, it's just like a Harvard dropout. We need to have that level of thinking in organization that said, hey, it's to do something. I failed.
I thought actually only half an hour has gone. Apparently, a 1 hour gone. Discuss it to
at a point. There's an interesting statement. If you want to fail early.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair.
If not, fail fast. If not, you are using investors' money. Okay. How can you fail early with
So much of commitment of resources.
Yeah. So,
for the interest of time, I'd love to discuss and I actually didn't get, we took 1 hour. I thought it was 15 to 20 minutes, but apparently now it's 3:30. Yeah, it's interesting. So I'll give you 2 minutes each to have a closing remarks on the same topic. We start with Dr. Shanta.
Yes. To summarize what we have been telling, is it? Well,
For a business.
for business, yeah. Whether we like it or not, the business environments are changing and we have to run fast. How to run fast? We need to be able to respond quickly to the changes in the marketplace. And as I told you earlier, we are not only comparing ourselves with the competitors, we are always collaborating with outsiders. They are our buyers or clients who are in the same value chain. So we need to adapt to what they do as fast as possible. To do that, we should have the extraordinary skill of getting switched to new technologies, new talents, new skills as fast as possible. To do that, we need to think of new strategies with the same set of employees, not to underestimate the greatest asset of a new organization, employees, but can we continue to do with the same talent pool? No, we have to have agility, we have to have flexibility. I discussed the importance of having a mindset to challenge what's going on. To do that, you have to have this, let's say, employees tend to be very rational, very logical with their work. That is mandatory according to your job contract. But if we can allow them to relax, they will come up with innovations. This can never happen with a same set of employees whose mindset is there. I have to protect myself for the next 10 years, 20 years. On the other hand, the new generation employees, they are not willing to join business organizations with long-term commitments. However much we try to convince them, HR managers, whether you like it or not, you have to accept this as a fact. You have miserably failed. I was the head of HR of 2 companies for more than 12 years. I failed because people do not want to. When we talk to them about probation period and confirm the employees, during the probation period they leave. So we have ultimately become most of our companies. If you are high tech, this is very valid. You have become training institution to the industry. So how to challenge this? We have to be prudent enough to be agile with our talent management strategy.
Okay, before coming into Sam, just a quick remark, quick add on to Dr. Shanta. We as a businesses owe that to the country as well, right? Because it's not about selling for Sri Lanka now. If you have a SaaS product for Sri Lanka, $1 per month, maybe you would have $5 million, right? Entire year is $60 million. I know it's a lot of money, but as investor, if your total addressable market is the top mark, it doesn't generate that unicorn no hopes and dreams.
Yep.
Right? So you have to go outside. When you go and competing outside, you need all these strategies coming up, right? Lower cost. Sam.
Yeah, so my one is very simple. I think the word is reimagine. I would say reimagine talent. And because the reason is, you see, if you look at the last 2-3 years, I think I must have gone into so much of discussions. They're talking about the same thing. Talent shortage, talent crunch. expensive, migration, what do you call retention, attrition, on and on and on. So when something is going on and on and on and on, if you are not rethinking and reimagining, that means that is, I had to say what Einstein said, which you are trying, I call insanity, and you are trying to do the same thing over and over again and trying to expect a different result, right? So here's the thing, there are methods. I mean, you can use a framework like design thinking or whatever like that, and get into a room and think whether you can basically, reimagine the way that you run your business, particularly your talent strategy in this year. I mean, I'm sure you can find.
So I was informed there are few questions from the audience. So let's take one. So it says many organizations face challenges of Gen Z candidates expecting high salaries despite limited experience and skill gap. How can companies strike a balance between attracting young talent and maintaining the fair compensation structure while also encouraging the skill development?
Yeah, I mean, some answers, so they are in a conversation as well, right? So basically, you are again looking at this thing as a very isolated thing, right? So you are thinking about the new people and their company salaries and all those stuff. So, but then if you really look at it, I mean, I will not go into technicality, but in an organization, there is a maximum that you can hire, and there is something we call them the percentiles, right? Yeah. Whether you are on a 50th percentile or the 70th, depending on. So sometimes these smaller companies, for them to attract talent is difficult. You have to pay more money. And if it is a large company, because of the brand reputation and things like that, the stability and all, you can relatively pay a lesser amount and get so depending on that. So in this case, they're talking about, whether the youngsters are asking for more salary. So the other question you need to ask, those guys are getting those salaries on, yes or no? Right now, for example, I tell you one example. Now, there was a particular technology we were running. They were asking for more salaries. More and more salaries, saying that, okay, this is like a demand still. We need more salaries. So I was, as a head of HR at that time, went to my global head and said, look here, I'm having a lot of pressure. Now these guys are asking for more salary than nothing. He asked me only one question. Tomorrow, we send over 50 to the market. Do you think how many of them will get? No higher. So, for an example, they can get that question. I said, Sam, look here, I'm pretty sure all 50 is not going to get hired. Probably 4 guys might get hired. You tell me those 4 guys' names. I will probably pay them double the salary or whatever and keep it. I'll also see why they are so important. The similar goes here. People can ask for main questions. They might not have the skill development and all those stuff, right? But it's all about that is a particular price that you can pay and you will pay, and the market is very much pay. Just because they ask, that doesn't mean that you can say. And if a company goes and do that also, you will see it is impacting their margins and all those stuff. And at some point, it's not become sustainable for the organization, right? And then you look at whether there is any other ways of basically managing that. I don't know. What's okay from that?
No, the same thing. What I would like to share is now, from an employee perspective, we have to be fair by our organizations. Okay, demanding high salaries which are not economically feasibly will not work, and such organizations can fail. But if you are very confident about your talents, there are technology platforms like freelancer.com to Uptap to Fiverr to whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, do it there. Let's try to build the ecosystem here where this gig economy is very, very popular.
Yeah.
And those who are not confident about their talents, about their competences, let them join as ordinary employees on full-time basis where they are paid at the end of the month. Let's try to inculcate that kind of a culture in Sri Lanka. The guys who are super performers, their charges are very high, assignment basis, hourly basis. Let organizations to hire them on short-term basis. Ordinary people will only join business organizations for months or years and years. Don't take me wrong. Somebody has to share this message with the audience, so I did that.
So one, I don't know, the time is up. But again, you are the problem, the company is the problem. For example, you want to hire a person for 100,000 for the whole month. Now, we also need to understand, just took 100,000 as just a figure, but probably people are not, people can't survive with that 100,000 outside. But our law or something doesn't say that this guy can work in 3 places for 100,000.
Yeah.
Then you can get your work done for 100,000. This guy will work for 2 other places and get 100,000. He gets 300,000.
Everyone's happy.
Everyone's happy, right? And that's why when the labor, those at some point about 1 year back or something, there was a consultation for all of us asking about changing the labor law of Sri Lanka. And we said, you need to allow by law that people can work in dual multiple employment. I don't know whether it is
As long as they do ethically,
and also obviously we are the money where not conflict of interest. There are certain guardrails. I'm not telling just to open it up like that way, but then of course your problem is there, right? So Gen Z now, in the way, I don't know. In this case, he says he's not a skilled person, but imagine he's a skilled person. But there is a maximum amount the company can pay for a person. Yeah. I will pay that, and I will say rest of the other you go and work somewhere and get other money. But we are not allowing that to happen. That's the problem.
So I think that's it. Our time is up. I would love to have an additional 1 hour, right? But unfortunately, we haven't planned for that. But I love the conversation. Thank you very much for very, very interesting ideas shared. I must say I have learned a lot also. I got my few concerns that I also have the answer. Thank you very much. I hope the audience also enjoyed the session with the 2 experts, one of the industry leading experts. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you very much.
thank you for having us.
Thank you. Hopefully, it's useful for the audience.